Hello, all, and welcome to Challenging High Achievers, a live discussion between myself and Bryony Hart. Welcome back to any of our previous webinar attendees. It's great to see you again. And if it's your first time at one of the day sessions, it's great to have you here. Thank you for choosing to spend your lunchtime with us. So, in this 30 minutes we have here today, I'll be asking Bryony some questions to understand why current affairs are such an effective tool for moving academically able students towards deeper critical thinking. We'll also discuss a little bit about how Bryony uses the day. So just a bit of housekeeping before we start. The session is recorded and will be sent to you later in the week. If you have any questions for Bryony, please pop them in the chat. And if we have time, I'll ask them towards the end of the session. So we're just going to dive right in because we only have 30 minutes today. But Bryony, thank you so much for being here today with us. Could you tell us a bit about your role at the Portsmouth Grammar School and the students you work with?
Of course, yeah. Thank you so much for having me. So I've been at Portsmouth Grammar School since 2007. Can you believe? So 19 years, and we are a selective through school. So we go from 2 to 18, and so we have quite a high ability pupil range across our school, but specifically from secondary upwards. So we start it's slightly more selected from year 7 upwards. My role with at school, I'm an English teacher, but I'm also a whole school literacy lead. So I do whole school from year 3 up to year 13, but I also do a lot of work with the preschool and junior school as well, and the EYFS curriculum teachers as well. So I'm a whole school curriculum, which is great. And my aim really is to really develop a really strong reading culture at PGS and really develop critical reading skills. So that's kind of from day one, that when they come into us, that's what we're doing. And also I do a lot of reading interventions as well, where I'm using the day to do that.
Wonderful. Yeah, and that leads us on to the second question was really kind of specifically, how do you use the day and why is it such a good fit for those high achieving students that
Yeah,
you're
of
working
course.
with?
Yeah. So actually we've had a subscription for the day for years. And I can remember the head librarian at the time, Carol Webb, so some people might be aware of her. She used to send it out to tutors and we would have access for it. So if people were motivated enough, they would be in using it, engaging with it with their tutor time, but also within their curriculum. And then we actually also used to use newspapers, physical newspapers, which I started to do, but actually turned into a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. So the day has been an absolute gift. Because if you are using physical newspapers, there's a huge cost, logistical kind of organization around that. Whereas the day, it's obviously online, and it's updated all the time. So it's live. So you'll get kind of getting that really current affairs. So you can often jump in and be using an article on something that's really topical. It's well written, and you can start using it with your children straight away. So for us, the main way in which we use it, and I do kind of promote it with departments, but the main way we use it is through tutor time.
Yeah.
So at year 8, they have access to it, and we kind of use it just very lightly in year 8. So we might be linking them to an article that links into something that they're doing at the moment within the curriculum. But at year 9, every single Tuesday, they have it's dedicated literacy time. And I know that a lot of schools, particularly state schools, use fiction during those tutor times, but actually we've opted to go non-fiction, and there is a reason for that. So from year 9, we start off every single week, and they have an opportunity to kind of access the material that's on the day. And the reason why we've chosen for that like non-fiction route rather than a fiction route is because when they get to GCSE language, one of the tasks that they have to answer, which is half the marks of one of the paper, so it's 50%, it's huge, is they might be asked to write an article. And so they need to know how to write an article, and they need to know what one looks like. And actually, a lot of the time, children don't have this material at home. Their parents and carers might be accessing news, but they're doing it on their phone. So they don't know what a physical article looks like, how it's laid out on the page, the tone of an article, and so that's how we use it. So if you would like, I can talk to you through the process of how I do that.
Yeah,
Would that work?
absolutely. And I was also, while you're doing that, also curious, you're doing this really great article work. Is there a particular topic or theme that's really resonating with those students, the nonfiction articles that they're kind of gravitating to?
Yeah, so they, I would say, I mentioned this earlier, didn't I? They love the economics. They love any article to do with economics. They want to know how much people are earning. They want the debate about the morality behind earnings, which is one of your recent articles, actually, which I featured on for this week for their reading. They really enjoy that part, and I wonder whether that's partly because we don't offer GCSE or economics is not a thing. So I do actually think what the day does is it kind of plugs that gap in the curriculum because it's just not a thing. They do business studies, obviously, but it's not always going to be focused on economics. So yeah, I think that's probably how it kind of helps to stretch them.
That's
But if you're
fascinating. Yeah,
happy,
yeah, I'd love. Yeah, please show us how you do it, and you
yeah.
can share your
So
screen
would you like me to share my screen?
or talk through it, whatever you prefer, Bryony.
I'm going to go and share my screen. I've got it ready. So can you see that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the Year 9 Google Classroom. So I'll just show you. So I've got my separate. So this is for Year 9. So the head of Year 9 is in charge of this, and I
Okay.
have my own little literacy section. And as you'll see, I've scanned down. You can see that it's being used every week. We had to take a pause for Year 9 exams, but we're back on it again this week. And this is what I will do. So I'll go into the on a Monday night. I've done this early this week, but on a Monday night, I'm always listening to the news, so I know what's happening, and I think I'm really aware of what I want the children to be reading.
Yeah.
So I'll jump into the day, and I'll scan through the content that's there, and then I'll choose an article. And what I do, and it's that this is the really good thing of having one person that oversees it, because for this particular task for tutor time, because then we have a rotation of focus. So sometimes it might be an economics based focus point, it might be a sports base, or it might be some kind of cultural article. And so what I try to do is rotate that as much as possible so they get a full range. And if anybody's been, if you do use the day, when you read the article and you go to the bottom, there's all that amazing extra resources. I mean, it's an absolute gift. But if you go in, and what I do is I scan down and I'll look at the video content and I'll try and find a short video content and I'll put that as their first task. So before
Okay.
they've done anything, before they've read the article, I'll ask them to kind of do something that will familiarize themselves with the topic. Some of them will have prior knowledge and some of them have none. So the whole point of that task is to kind of bring them to the same kind of level playing field. Then they'll read the article. I
Mhm.
ask the tutors to read it aloud to them. However, I have seen tutors actually getting them to do it independently, which is totally fine. It depends on the pupil, I guess. And then they have the discussion. And then in the day, obviously, it says at the bottom, it gives you kind of starting points. So I literally just copy and paste that in so the tutor can use those to help prompt them because tutors are busy. We know that they're all like doing pastoral stuff as well as, kind of admin and stuff alongside that. So to have this ready for them, it just means that they go in and off they go. And then this is something new that we've started. So we've been doing this for years now with the day. And so for next year, I really want us to link it to writing. So this is all about developing their reading and critical reading skills. I want them to
Mhm.
become critical writers. So next year, well, I'm piloting it now. So for the next 4 weeks, we're piloting it. But next year, I will always link in an opportunity for them to do some writing. So here, I link them to extra material that's already on your website. And so I picked out, because there's always quite a lot down there. And so sometimes I think that could be a bit overwhelming for the child if they're looking. So what I do is I pick out what I think would be really useful for them. So in this case, it was a BBC podcast. We want them, listening to those podcasts, BBC podcasts, because they're excellent. And then there was a really great article in there from Oxfam. And then I wanted them to then write in response to that, so an opinion piece. And we have a blog that we have at school, and so they can write their response. That can then go to the editors, and then we're going to really celebrate it next year. So they'll get a certificate in assembly, and then they'll be published as well. So it's just a really nice way of kind of really linking that critical reading into becoming critical writers. So that's the next stage in our literacy development for next year. So I kind of hope that answers that. So should I
No,
stop sharing that now?
yeah, that's great. And I have some questions about that because I love how you've really curated it to give it that laser focus for that
Yeah.
specific cohort. So that's fabulous. And then, which particular grade of, which kind of age of students are you focusing on when you're doing this, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so at year 8, so year 7, 8, and 9 they have a literacy day in tutor time, and so year 7 they're doing vocabulary work.
Yeah,
Year 8 they start moving into more debate, and so what I've started doing is if there's a topic, I will drop in an article from the day, but I won't put all that other extra information in there. And then when they get to year 9, that's when I'm hitting this. So it's year 13 to age 13 to 14, because we want them to have those critical reading skills before they start in their GCSE courses. They've got to be critical readers in our subject. They've always got to be questioning, thinking about, provenance. Where is this information coming from? Asking those questions. So yeah, so it's mainly with up to year 9. However, I have used articles from here in my subject, and I'll print them off and we actually read them together in class. And I also share them across departments. So if I think
yeah.
there's a really interesting topic I know is gonna link to somebody's curriculum, I'll send them the link and I'll say use this in your session with your class as a starter activity, and then they incorporate it into their subjects.
Perfect, perfect. And I know you mentioned the tutors before, how it's tutor driven. Are the students using their own devices whilst the tutors, delivering this, or is it all on one screen? Out of curiosity.
Yeah, so it depends on the tutor. So some people just have it on the screen, on the whiteboard in front of them, and they'll ask the pupils to put their laptops away. It depends on the group, I have to be honest with you. Some tutors are a bit more trusting, and they'll let them access the information on their own laptops because they all have their own devices in school. So never on a phone, it's always a laptop or an iPad. But yeah, it really does depend on the teacher.
Yeah, perfect, perfect. And kind of, just moving through some of the other ideas, and you have shown us some of this just by giving us that walkthrough. So clearly, this is helping the students into a mode of deeper thinking rather than
Yes.
just answering the question. And, with those students, do you have, for the audience, do you have like ways of perhaps getting them more comfortable with the multiple viewpoints that probably come out of these discussions?
Yeah, so definitely in year 8 when we do actually start discussing and debating a bit more, and then we continue doing it in year 9. So some people online might be familiar with P for C, so philosophy for children. And one of the techniques that they use, and it's so simple, you read through the article, you then pose them the debate question, and there's going to be some really nervous children in your class who will not share their thoughts. They might be the like really high attainers, but they're the ones who are very mute. They're mute in lesson. And so what we do is I'll get everybody to stand up and I'll say, right, if you agree with the statement, go to that end of the classroom. If you disagree, go to that end. If you're not sure, you stay in the middle. And then I'll start asking people. So I cold call to kind of encourage them to share their viewpoints. And then they're allowed to move. So if somebody says something that they feel like, oh, that's changed my viewpoint, they can move. And it doesn't have to be a big move. It could be just a few steps. And just that physical action of moving across the classroom then enables me to then say, oh, I noticed that you just moved there. What did so and so say that made you change your mind? And then they can start verbalizing their thought process. And then that helps to kind of keep that kind of conversation going. So it's just a really easy, I'm sure that everyone does it, but it's just a really easy technique to use in class. And the children love it. They love getting out of their seats. They love the idea of being able to move across during discussions. Some of them will just stay because they've made up their mind. And so you can challenge them and say, why didn't you change your mind? What was it about this topic? What was about the discussion that reinforced your viewpoint? So that's just a really nice way of doing it.
That's really interesting. Yeah, yeah. It's so physical, the thinking, but also the moving around the classroom. That's really incredible. I'm sure a lot of audience members might try that as well. And kind of thinking about global awareness and just really how that's particularly important for high achieving learners. Why do you think promoting this is so important for our high achieving students?
Yeah, so our high achieving students are using social media in exactly the same way that all the other children are using social media. So their diet, if you speak to the children, I'm sure everybody will be saying the same thing. Their diet of news is, if at all, TikTok.
Mhm.
And that's kind of based on algorithms, and it's narrow and it's particular. It has a political leaning. it's problematic. It's really problematic, and it's shaping the way that our children think in a worrying way. It really is. You know, I've got really smart children who came into their GCSEs saying, I was on TikTok last night and it said this question's going to come up. You know, and we've got to challenge that attitude of like, hold on a minute, why did it get onto TikTok? Was that exam question on there? Where did that come from? Who was putting it on there? So like, that's why we do it. So the day is really good for, you've got the article, and then once you get to the bottom, you've got all those links. And what they start to realize is, well, actually, hold on, there's multiple sources from where this information is coming from. There's other ways in which you can see this viewpoint. And so, yeah, I feel like just where we are kind of socially at the moment in terms of like social media and the impact that's having on how we consume news. And I think as adults, we do it as well. You know, we pick and choose what we want to read, whereas the day is quite nice because it keeps it really broad. It opens up other avenues for research and exploration to help develop those critical reading skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see all the questions that are coming about because of this really interesting, conversation you're having with us, Bryony. So thank you so much. We're going to get to those questions because I want to allow time for all those so that everyone gets an answer. Yeah, I mean, just kind of before we move into that, you've given us a lot to think through. Is there any like practical advice you'd give schools wanting to better challenge their highest attainers above and beyond what you've already shared? And really, I mean, kind of combining it with another idea that we were thinking through is what literacy and oracy skills do you think current affairs really develop particularly well right now?
Well, yeah, I did it last night and I was just looking at so the thing about current affairs over any other because obviously subjects have their own disciplinary language. I was literally talking about this morning to a whole group of head of departments. They've all got their tier 3 vocabulary. Current affairs kind of, it's current affairs language. It's so interesting. So I picked out one of the articles. I'm really sorry, didn't write down the article name, but it was on there yesterday, and I just picked out some of the vocabulary. So it was missiles, shake fragile peace in Middle East, military solutions, ceasefire, new exchange, salvo, operations, economic support. I mean, that language is challenging, it's sophisticated. And from an English teacher point of view, when we're looking at that, the high band pupils, it says sophisticated vocabulary, and it does it across all of the mark schemes. And as a school, I don't know that this might be quite interesting for anybody who's an English teacher. We basically pulled out all of the grade 9 exam papers from last year, and we've analysed them to look at what is it that's distinguishing this as a grade 9 apart from all those other ones who are not getting the grade 9. And what we came to the conclusion was vocabulary. It's vocabulary. That's the difference, because as soon as you open up that vocabulary, and that's what the kind of non-fiction current affairs does, they can communicate like way more with more dexterity than they would if they were not reading that kind of material. And it's really nice, like being able to stop in class and go, well, hold on a minute, what does the word ceasefire mean? And they have lots of preconceptions about what words mean, and then you can
Yeah.
unpick that. And so that's why I think it's really good. It really helps to push them into that slightly more academic. It's adult language, isn't it? It's really adult, and that's what's really good about the articles on the day is that they are really well written, and they hold on to that language that you would see in newspapers if you're buying, the Times or the Guardian. So it's still all there, which is brilliant. So I don't know if that helps to answer that question.
I think that's, yeah, right to the point. It's very succinct to think. It's really back to the words and giving students that forum to practice asking the questions and
Yeah.
using them and doing it through the articles. So that's perfect, Bryony. Thanks so much for that. I'm going to dive right into the audience questions because they're coming in fast and furious. And the first one's from Ben in the audience. How do tutors respond to the day? And do they tend to follow all the tasks that are set? And a few questions. Do they appreciate the ease of resources? And lastly, is it 20 minutes of tutor time or longer or shorter?
So actually, we don't have long for tutor time. So technically, they have 25 minutes. By the time all the tutors in the room right now will know, by the time they've come in, they've done their stuff either end of tutor time. You've probably got about, if you're lucky, 15 minutes. So the tutors really value it all being organised for them. tutors are teachers, and they've got to rush off afterwards to go and teach. So really what they want to do is be able to come in, open it up, it's all there. If they are, if they're in early before the day, it means that they can go in, because I will have uploaded it Monday night, so they can see what's coming up. And if there's, and this is actually definitely worth me saying, actually, I think I've put topical, really topical, sensitive articles on there before that potentially might have pastoral implications. And so what I do is I will email out to all those teachers beforehand to say, just so that you're aware, this article tomorrow is going to be surrounding this. Can you please be mindful if this it will impact any of your tutees? So I do that beforehand. I think the tutors really appreciate that. And just coming back to what extent do they follow it? Um, they do. So the article is always at the heart of it. So they might drop the video content if the time is against them, and they will go to the article, they'll read the article, and they'll do the discussion. And that's generally what happens if the time is tight, because the video content sometimes is between 3 to 5 minutes, and they basically decide just to get rid of that so they can jump into the nitty-gritty of reading an article.
Yeah, and that's such a great point to kind of hammer home that it's all adaptable. We're all working with different amounts of times in the classroom, sometimes 10, 15, 20 minutes, but they all work depending on what the day has in store. Perfect. And then moving towards our next question from Rohini, how do you differentiate even between the high achievers? How do you make those sort of distinctions to
Yeah.
ensure that they're all challenged?
I mean, we've always used, actually, I did make some notes on this. So we always do use the high level. So it goes up to level 4, doesn't it? Is it 3 to 4? I've got it in my head that's 3 to 4, but it might not be. No, 4 to 5, beg your pardon.
4 to 5, yeah.
Yeah, 4 to 5. I always use that, because actually what I want, right, so from a literacy point of view, because that's my role, we should always be providing them with high level material. And so the teacher, so if the person asking that question knows about reciprocal reading, basically if the teacher leads and they read out the article, then you can then do the vocabulary work and go, right, well, let's just summarize what we've just read. What was that article about? And then you can then do the vocabulary work and unpick it a bit. And you can kind of do that as you're reading. So that's what you would do to a younger child, as you're reading out a book and you come across a word. So there's the word bumptious, for example, in one of the Harry McAlery books, which I read to year 3. And they're like, what does bumptious mean? So you stop and you unpack that word and then you move on. So from a literacy point of view, I would always recommend going for the stretch and risking it. But obviously the joy about the day is that you can then level. So you can be doing this, accessing the same article, but giving out different copies depending on the ability ranges within the group.
That's great. And I think we're all going to be using the word bumptious after this.
It's such a great word.
It's a great word. Thank you. That's why we talk about it. Moving on, now you mentioned the article work that's really integral to helping students prep for GCHEs. What about the teaching of nonfiction? How does that help with any other type of exam or university prep as you see it?
Well, it is critical thinking. I mean, that's like literally comes down to critical thinking. So I would say that by using the day and using the non-fiction, it really starts to get them to encourages them to actually, at the bottom of every single article, there's always a debate. So it's like, well, you've just read that. To what extent do you agree? And like literally, that's what university is all about, isn't it? You go to your first uni lecture, they want to know your viewpoint. And if you haven't been in the habit of being challenged about your viewpoint and having the opportunity to vocalize that, that's why the oracy is such a strong part of what we do as part. I mean, obviously they're reading, but actually one of the big things that we're doing is really encouraging debate and discussion. So being confident with it's okay to be challenged. And maybe not to have the answer right there and then, and to kind of say, oh, actually, I'm not quite sure. I'm just going to sit on the fence on this one, or vice versa. You could go, I really fundamentally disagree because. So yeah, I think that's the joy of the non-fiction, is it really gets them to think about whether or not they disagree with what's been written. Because if you're reading fiction, well, you either like it or you don't, and it's subjective. Whereas fiction content is generally, there's a debate to be had.
Precisely. No, that's great. We have another question from Ben in the audience. What methods do you use with your year 7s to develop their vocabulary during tutor time?
Right, so these are all fun-based activities. So we don't actually use the day at year seven. So we use it at year eight, but for year seven, we all do things like word association games. We play things like Scrabble, we do Hangman, we do just a minute is absolutely brilliant for year seven. I don't know if any you've come across Just a Minute on
What
Radio
is just a
4.
minute?
Right, you need to Google this. Radio
Okay.
4, just a minute. It's absolutely hilarious. You have 1 minute to talk about a subject, and it might be something like cheese. And you have to talk without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. It's brilliant. And what is it? It really channels them in making sure that they're choosing their vocabulary really carefully. And it's fantastic. So it's just little games like that in year seven, just getting them, it's just playful and fun, but actually at the bottom, at the heart of it is vocabulary building.
Perfect. Now, make it fun, and the lesson does its own work. Last question we have, as I know we're getting close to the end, so I want to get through all these audience questions, is how do you keep critical thinking with parents at home apart from homework?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Oh, golly. So actually we do a lot of work with our parents. It's been the big drive this year of making that connection, and really saying, so for example, we've had year sevens and year five parents in just this term to come in and look at our reading projects that we do with the reading mentors. We've got year 12 reading mentors who read with year sevens weekly, every single week. Year 12s are leading that discussion. And then that gives me opportunity when the parents come in to observe that, to talk to them about their role as readers at home, and that they should be reading to their children, with their children, and questioning. And I talk to them about reciprocal reading skills in those sessions. And I was like, you don't just sit there and listen to your child reading. You need to start asking questions. How did that make you feel about that character? What do you think is going to happen next? Do you agree that with the character's actions? And so, helping to upskill the parents is a big push, I think, for us as a school. But I know that it will obviously be in the minds of lots of people listening as well, trying to make that connection with parents and their responsibility as readers at home.
That's great. We have the time actually. They're still coming in, Bryony, so I say
Yeah.
we answer them. This one is really interesting. What strategies do you use to ensure the loudest or more confident students are also listening to those quieter students that you mentioned in that
Yeah.
activity before?
Right. So in the activity where we do this, they're not allowed to talk until they're invited. So basically what you do, you let them get their position, and then you can to do that, because I know that this has been an issue. So sometimes I cold call, but another way of doing it is you say, like, put your hands up if you would like to say something, and you make a list of the people who want to contribute to begin with. And you just invite them to discuss. You say, right, so you've got your hand up, right, you've got 30 seconds. What would you like to say? And it's just about just managing, because you can't silence them. I think it's really like those people who are really dominant speakers in a group, they're always going to be dominant. It's just about actually teaching them, you've got 30 seconds, and then we're going to go over, and then I'll maybe choose somebody who's doesn't normally want to contribute, but they're going to. And then we just balance it out like that. So just controlling that discussion is the best way, really. I don't know if that helps to answer that.
I think that helps a lot. Bryony, we've had so much fun. Would you come back and do another one of these
Oh,
another
I'd love to.
time? Cool. Because we're going to wrap it up only because we want everyone to get back to class
Of
and
course.
say goodbye properly. But thank you for all of this because, and the questions from the audience, everyone, these have been really fantastic.
Oh,
So we'll
pleasure.
we'll have to do a part two next academic year. But
Yes.
yeah, so this is all the time we have for today, unfortunately. But thank you so much, Bryony, for joining us. You were fantastic and
Oh,
very interesting. So a big thank you again to the audience for making time for us. If you'd like to learn more about the day and the tools we offer to keep high achievers engaged, please do get in touch. My colleague will post a form in the chat right now. We can book a short call with the team. We'll also let you know a bit more about our summer offer. If you sign up by the end of the month, you'll get the rest of the term for free. So definitely take advantage of that. The recording will be shared around to all of you later in the week, as well as some key takeaways from the session that came out of this conversation. So keep your eye on your inbox for that. And thank you again, Bryony, for your time and expertise. Fascinating stuff. And to our audience, I hope you've enjoyed the session. We'll see you in September. So have a wonderful summer and see you for our next webinar. Take care, everyone, and all the best. Thanks again.
thank you.